I'm so glad you were talking about integrity and respect because it leads us into, you know, what was that like for you? And I could speak to what it was like for me to not have, I had this disconnection from self. And I don't know that I really ever had a really good understanding of respect, except for what I was told as a young person about, standing tall, you know, putting my shoulders back. And I think when you grow up in a disrespectful home where, I was reading something today about, see if I can pull it up, about this. Your children are not a masterpiece that you create. They are their own masterpiece creating themselves. And you have been given the privilege of watching them be the artist.
I think that's absolutely
And,
correct.
I think when we come here and if we are in an abusive home, it's still what can you do for me? How can you behave? And unless that freedom is given to you in some way to be able to, um, what's the word I'm looking for, to be able to
Be yourself.
be yourself, but to form,
Yeah.
to form who you are and how you want to be in the world. I was given the opportunity by my mom to very much be who I was. Um, but it had to be in the confines of kindness and you know a simple respect for other people. However, that wasn't something that I necessarily had for myself.
I,
um,
I think,
and especially in those relationships.
yeah. So the problem is understanding that to somebody who abuses, you're an object. So that would be a bit like saying you've got to sort of have respect and integrity towards your toaster. We are of the same kind of, that's what we are to them. We're at that same level. Um, and when it comes to children, perpetrators, that's exactly the same thing. They're just an extension of themselves. Um, quite often they'll dress them the same as them, they're mini me's, they're all of these things rather than individuals in their own right. And yes, genetically, this magic happens where we create this human being. But after that, the way I see it is it's scaffolding. It's our job as parents is to scaffold that young person and be a safety net for them as they formulate who they are. And I think I was quite lucky in that respect. Um, but when I came across my perpetrator, I mean, he very much was of that ilk that you know your your children are reflect what they do. It reflects on you, which is true. It is true. Like as parents, but what they miss is the responsibility element of it. The responsibility of parenting, the responsibility of having integrity, of being respectful. The idea that we are respectful of our children is a real anathema to some people. That doesn't mean that you can't tell them off. It doesn't mean that you can't provide boundaries. It doesn't mean that they can run roughshod. In fact, it's the opposite, because you have to teach them respect and integrity. That's your job, is to teach them. That's how I see it anyway. But you know I think even when you have self-respect, and I mean, I did have self-respect, you know, there was people that I would stand up to, there was things that I wouldn't do in my job, things that cost me money and cost me career progression because I wouldn't sort of sell myself in that respect, you know. Not everybody would agree that I was doing the right, but interestingly, one person said I wasn't ambitious enough because I wouldn't debase myself. You know, I wouldn't do that, you know, because I wanted to be happy as well as successful. So that's quite an interesting comment, you know. That's something that stuck with me for quite a long time. But the way that he was able to chip away at my self-respect, like it's like 1,000 paper cuts. And I think any self-respect or self-esteem, a healthy one, I think the only one that it wouldn't affect is an unhealthy self-esteem that's just so big and so strong and so solid that nothing is going to shake it. And then actually you're in the, you know, you're in the narcissistic sort of, you know, arena, like into
The
the
realm.
realm of NPD. But and catching yourself doing things that I would not have considered in a million years before him. And then what comes with it is the shame of I've gone against myself, my very being, my beliefs, everything, you know. And that's, I think these are elements that really shake us to our core. This is one of the things that really makes us distrust ourselves. And
Well,
I
I mean, you
suppose in
get
a way we
told.
lose respect for ourselves as well. I mean, I know there was an element that I did of like, how have I let this happen, and what's become of me, you know?
Well, you don't even know it's happening. I mean, it's so slight, and I think it comes into that whole um, agreeable. It's not a big deal. This happened. Okay, no big deal. Okay, no big deal. Okay, we'll talk about that later.
Hmm.
Okay, you know, where you're fighting, 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 and you lose ground of who you are, and then all of a sudden you don't know who you are. That, I mean, that's kind of
Hmm.
how that happened for me
Yeah,
in
same here.
relation. And 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 also, you know, there, I mean, there's so much to that whole complexity of that
Hmm.
whole uh the family setting, and then coming into being a couple, and then trying to form this relationship, um even if it's friendship, even if it's a working
Hmm.
relationship, of, you know, how do I maintain that respect? Um, there was something that Brene Brown said, which is she's not going to do anything to betray herself. And that's kind of, I mean, really, that is what we're talking about, is that if you don't understand respect for self and for others, and I think as survivors, we do understand respect
Hmm.
for others because we give it away too much. We're too agreeable to say, and I even hate saying that because there's nothing fundamentally wrong with being agreeable. It's just when somebody is stepping all over your feet and you have no bounds,
I think
you lose yourself.
you do. And on the one hand, I agree. On the other, I'm not sure because they move the goalposts all the time. When you've got somebody who is moving the
Yeah.
goalposts all the time, when somebody um, is is very adept at keeping somebody, you know, in wrong-footed. I think that's where some of that loss comes from. I don't think it's something I know I had self-respect and I know I had boundaries and I was strong about them. But what would happen is because they were such little tiny things as well, you know, they would just stack up and stack up and stack up. And I think it's that thing because you don't have a chance to recalibrate. They don't let you have that chance
Yeah,
to
that's true.
rebalance and go, hang on a minute, or when you do go, hang on a minute, they are very skilled. I think it's about this understanding and accepting that they are very skilled at what they do. This is a skill that they have, that they know that they're doing, and that I think as normal functioning human beings, we haven't learned that skill to the same level because we don't need to. There was an assumption on my part that there was a normal human mutual respect. We're grown-ups, we're adults.
Yeah.
We were adults. We weren't babies when we met. We weren't teenagers, which, I think that it can be difficult to figure that out when you're much younger, especially with your first relationships, and because you don't have the experience. But I certainly knew right from wrong, and I knew what I was happy to put up with and not. But, when somebody is saying to you, I don't like the smell of coffee. And you say, well, fine, I won't drink coffee around you. To me, there's no skin off my nose there. But then it becomes eventually this massive issue. So you end up not drinking coffee at all, even when they're not there. But there's other stuff going on. So I think there is an element of not taking all the blame for our self-respect. I think it's something that is taken from us, and I think that's one of the things that we can feel coming back when we and it can feel really strange as well when we start to come out the other side, if we're lucky enough to. And that's part of what we're fighting to get back, is our self-respect as human beings.
Yeah, I mean, I like your analogy because that sums it up. You're just sitting there being agreeable, like, okay, this sense of smell for the coffee annoys this person. I won't drink coffee around them. And then all of a sudden, it's like, did you drink coffee today? Because I can smell it. And then it's like, why is there coffee in the coffee maker? That the grinds in the coffee are not. I can smell it, and I don't. I'd rather you didn't have the grinds or even have coffee. And then you're like, okay, fine. You get rid of the coffee maker. And then it becomes, did you have coffee today? Or I looked on, our MasterCard and you went to Starbucks today.
Yeah.
What are you doing at Starbucks?
That is it in a nutshell. That encompasses so much of coercive and controlling behaviour. And because it's done in increments, it's not until you're at that point where you've got rid of your coffee machine, you don't have a coffee outside even when they're not there, because they'll find out somehow. And, even if they don't ask you or say or whatever, then it's the silent treatment. And you don't know what it is. So you might, oh my God, I had that coffee. Yeah. And it's pretty mind-blowing. I get that it's mind-blowing to anybody,
It's never about the coffee.
It's never about the coffee. It is never about the coffee or anything else of the particular thing. It's, my goodness. Hats off to them. That is, but I just would not want to live like that, would you?
I ain't giving them my hat. No. Don't say hats off to them.
No, but I mean, well, it's like
a quick kick in the butt, maybe.
But there is an element of fascination, not respect, but an element of fascination of like, my goodness, you're spending your life doing this, wasting that time and energy and effort. And yeah, it's clever.
You know,
It's clever. I come back to that Jimmy Savile thing, where he said, clever people get caught, but I'm tricky. And,
oh my God, right?
and
Ugh.
yeah, but it's,
Well, and you know what else comes into play too? I was thinking about while you were saying that. Is this like, ooh, I'm going to out some people.
ooh, exciting.
I know, right? Uh, Police officers at a domestic violence call.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the perpetrator happens to be male, and they say to the target who has called, they say, he just wants to get his family back. Can't you just, you can understand why he's mad, because he's just so sad, and he just wants to get his family back. And here this poor person has gone through all these barriers to get to a point where they're calling law enforcement, and law enforcement is minimizing it and belittling it. Then you get into in front of a judge. What happens there, Sam, over in the UK?
Well,
I mean, go ahead, because you've done a lot of research on it.
I mean, there's only 3 out of 4 reported cases, and there's hundreds of thousands of them. There's only 3 out of 4 make it to charge, not prosecution charge. And even if they do get all the way there, then the judge gives them suspended sentences. Their good character comes into it. Well, no, the thing about what they don't get is that perpetrators portray a good character that is very different to what they do in the home. And we've got a big problem over here with the whole judiciary, from the police right the way through, where they've lost our trust. Well, going back to what we were talking about at the beginning, without respect for people and without integrity from the police, from the CPS, from judges, they're not going to get that trust. So, they need to step up. And that's, that is something that I work towards helping them do. And, this is a conversation that we can carry on. And if people like what we say and what we do, then, they can ding the bell and press the light and do all of that. But we'll keep on with this conversation, won't we, Kat?
Exactly. That's what we do here at the Cat and Sam Show. We love to talk and just have conversation. Why not have conversation about the things that happen in homes and at work and out in the public domain? And private, open those doors. There's no reason for it to be hidden.
Let the air in.
Let the air in. Fresh air is always good.